This was inside your bag.
Because I planted it! You put it there.
Careful.
You're already facing one charge. You named the stolen watch before you could even see the case.
Take the plea. Leave town.
How many innocent people did you tell that to?
Roanoke's nice.
I never told you I was considering Roanoke. Housekeeper, gardener, nanny. Same evidence, same two men.
They were waiting before the evidence appeared.
Kimball and Padilla?
Both of them. She's connecting the victims. What do you want me to do? Give her another crime.
Silver Civic, Ashford night shift. You planted the earrings!
Get away from my car.
Esperanza went to prison because of you.
Kimball will bury both of us.
Then help me bury him first.
Delete every log older than 90 days. Why now?
2 minutes remaining.
Come on. I copied the logs.
Will you testify?
If Kimball finds out, I'm next. Today, you retired.
I did. Because they chose the wrong woman.
The Ashford Estates HOA storage room smelled of fertilizer and pool chlorine. At 5:47 am. Before the maintenance crew arrived, before the gate guard changed shifts, Ray Kimball stood over a canvas tool bag with a faded logo Renee's Pet Care. He unzipped it, placed a women's Cartier bracelet in a static-free pouch between a roll of waste bags and a bottle of hand sanitizer, and zipped it shut. Then he pulled on a fresh pair of nitrile gloves and drove to the Whitfield residence. The Whitfields were in London. Kimball opened the glass display case with a key he'd copied 18 months ago and lifted the Patek Philippe Nautilus from its velvet cradle. $42,000. Retail. He'd get $9 for it. He pocketed the watch, opened a hallway drawer, and left it ajar, and walked out through the side entrance. The whole thing took 4 minutes. Kimball had been stealing from Ashford Estates for 5 years, not 43 separate burglaries, but enough to require 43 camera modification scouting runs, entry nights, evidence plants, each one logged by the admin account. He thought no one was watching. Most thefts went unreported or were written off to insurance. He only needed a scapegoat when a resident pushed too hard, when a theft got too visible, when the questions got too close. 5 times in 5 years. He had chosen someone: a housekeeper, a gardener, a window washer, a nanny, a dog walker, and destroyed their lives in this community with 3 seconds of planted evidence. It wasn't personal. It was just how the math worked. The owners had insurance. The help was replaceable. The director of security for Ashford Estates had just framed the only person in the community who had spent 18 years hunting people exactly like him for the federal government. He just didn't know it yet. By the time Renee began her morning route, the trap was already waiting. She clipped the leash onto Baron, a 70-pound German shepherd, and stepped into the pale Virginia dawn. At 50, Renee moved with the compact efficiency of someone who had once cleared rooms in body armor but now carried dog treats in a fanny pack. Her grey hair was pulled into a tight bun. Her sneakers were worn flat on the outer edges. Baron joined the morning pack: 2 golden retrievers from the Petersons and a neurotic poodle named Biscuit from the Lynns. Biscuit had separation anxiety, so severe she'd trembled and refused to walk for the first 6 months, until Renee figured out that humming low and steady calmed her down. Now Biscuit pressed against Renee's ankle like a shadow. The Petersons' older golden, Duke, needed arthritis medication hidden in a piece of cheese every morning. Renee was the only person he'd take it from. 4 dogs, 3 houses, 6 mornings a week. The residents of Ashford Estates liked Renee because their dogs liked Renee. And in a gated community where trust was currency, that was enough. She passed the security office on the way to the East Trail. Through the glass door she saw Marcus Colvin, the hose-it engineer, hunched over a bank of monitors. Marcus was 34. Thin. The kind of person residents walked past without registering. He glanced up, gave a small nod, then looked back at his screens. On monitor 7, a timestamp log was blinking loop mode, activated at 5:41 a.m. Under the admin account, Marcus minimized the window and rubbed his eyes. On the East Trail, a neighbor waved from her porch. "Did you hear about the Chen's break-in last month? Some cleaning lady stole jewelry. Ray Kimball handled the whole thing. I heard," Renee said, and moved on. At 11:15, she drove to the Whitfield residence to feed their beagle. She punched in the key code, opened the door, and stopped. The air was different, moved. The glass display case stood open, shelves half empty. A hallway drawer had been pulled out. The beagle was hiding under the dining table. Renee stood in the doorway for 10 seconds, her eyes tracking the room. No broken glass, no tool marks, no shoe impressions, except her own. The case had been opened, not forced. She called Ashford Security. Ray Kimball arrived in 7 minutes. He stepped into the foyer and said, "The display case is open. That's where Whitfield keeps his watch collection." Renee said nothing, but Kimball had identified the case from the foyer, where a support column partially blocked the view. You could only know to look for it if you already knew. Detective Luis Padilla arrived 20 minutes later, stocky, trimmed goatee, greeting Kimball like an old colleague. They'd served together on the Fairfax County force for 6 years. Padilla's statement took 40 minutes and ended as an interrogation. He asked about her income, her debts, how long she'd been in the area. Then, "I'd like to look at your vehicle and your work bag." "Go ahead." Padilla unzipped the canvas bag in her van and held up the Cartier bracelet. "Miss Thibodeaux, that is not mine. Renee Thibodeaux. I'm placing you under arrest." Kimball stood 6 feet away, arms crossed, wearing the face of a security director, watching a trusted worker exposed. He had perfected this face. Renee turned, placed her hands behind her back, and felt the cuffs close. Her pulse did not change. The destruction took 72 hours. Bail ate her savings $4,000. She would not see again regardless of the verdict. Her phone showed 11 missed calls. 4 clients left voicemails that all started with, "We're so sorry," and ended with the same silence. The HOA sent a certified letter revoking her access badge and banning her from the property. Diane Kellerman posted on the Ashford Facebook group, "I always thought it was strange how she knew everyone's schedule. We let the fox into the henhouse." 47 likes. A comment below, "My dogs loved her. Goes to show you can't trust anyone." 23 likes. The public defender's office returned her call after 2 days. They could see her in 3 weeks. The private attorneys she called wanted retainers she couldn't pay. One said, bluntly, "The value of the stolen property doesn't justify my fee. You'd be better off taking the plea." By Friday morning, Renee had no income, no clients, no access to the community where she'd worked for 4 years, no lawyer she had actually spoken to, and a court date in 6 weeks. She sat at her kitchen table and looked at the apartment around her, the small, deliberate life she had built after Martin died. The bookshelves he had filled, the dog calendar on the wall, the silence she had chosen because it was the only thing that didn't hurt. On Friday afternoon, Kimball found her loading her last equipment from the HOA storage closet. "Renee, I'm sorry about all this." He leaned against the doorframe. "Between you and me, the DA is going to push hard. The bracelet, the gate log, the access codes. I've seen cases like this. People fight, spend everything on lawyers, and the jury's still convicts because the story makes sense. What are you suggesting?" "Misdemeanor plea. Community service. No jail time. Start fresh somewhere. Roanoke's nice." Renee looked at him, not the way a dog walker looks at a client, the way she had once looked at supply sergeants who sold night vision equipment to arms dealers. The assessment took 2 seconds. Kimball saw a woman considering his advice. "I'll think about it," she said. "Smart. People here have already decided what happened. Court won't change that." He walked away. Renee watched him go. That night, she sat at her kitchen table with 2 documents, apartment listings in Roanoke, and a court record, Commonwealth of Virginia v. Esperanza Molina, grand larceny, guilty plea, 18 months, a diamond necklace found in the defendant's cleaning cart, reporting security officer Ray Kimball. Investigating detective Luis Padilla, she searched further. Jean-Pierre Augustin, golf clubs found in his truck, same names, same pattern, a 3rd name, a 4th, a window washer, a part-time nanny, service workers, everyone. Renee sat back and looked at the ceiling. She could still take the plea. Misdemeanor. No jail time. Move to Roanoke. Walk different dogs in a town where nobody knew her name. The calculus was simple, fight and lose, the only life that had felt bearable since Martin died. Or walk away and let 4 strangers stay buried under a system designed to keep them silent. She thought about Esperanza's file, the public defender's recommendation, accept the plea, the defendant's occupation housekeeper, the defendant's daughter, Sophia Molina, age 8 at the time of sentencing, current guardian maternal grandmother, 3 seconds to plant a necklace, 2 years, and counting in a cell. Renee closed the Roanoke listings for 18 years. She had worked for the Defense Criminal Investigative Service, the law enforcement arm of the DoD Inspector General, procurement fraude, supply chain theft, financial crimes. She had tracked stolen equipment from Fort Bragg to black markets overseas. She had spent 2 years undercover in a naval shipyard that ended with 14 federal convictions. She left 5 years ago when her husband Martin was diagnosed. He died 11 months later. She chose dogs and silence and a life small enough to hold without breaking. She opened a new file on her laptop. Her first move was the one she knew best: follow the merchandise. Indices. She had learned that thieves made their money not in the taking but in the selling, and the selling always left a trail. Her first call was to Dana Whitmore, a special agent she'd partnered with for 6 years. I need a favor, not direct access. I need you to route 3 item descriptions through the regional stolen property liaison pawn shop transaction queries matching theft reports in Fairfax County. If anything hits, it's your lead to open or not. Don't run them under my name. Dana hesitated, then agreed. 48 hours later, she called back. 3 hits: a bracelet in Fredericksburg, golf clubs in Martinsburg, West Virginia, a pendant in Silver Spring, Maryland. 3 shops, 3 states, 3 different seller names, but the same prepaid phone number on every transaction. That's as far as I go. Dana said it was enough. 3 items across state lines. 1 phone number. A direction. Renee called the FBI's Fairfax field office through a former interagency contact. The meeting took place in a windowless room on Route 50. She laid out the pattern: 5 victims. Same reporting officer. Same detective. Same mechanism. Pawn shop hits across 3 states. Agent Strickland listened carefully, took notes, and closed her folder. Ms. Thibodeaux, I appreciate the work, but what you have are matching descriptions, not authenticated property IDs, a common phone number, not a subscriber, a pattern, not a probable actor. That's suspicion. It's not a federal case, and you're currently a defendant in one of these incidents. If we open an investigation, it looks like the Bureau running cover for a former agent. There's a woman in prison, Esperanza Molina, 2 years on a planted necklace. Her attorney can file for post-conviction relief through the state system. The state system is the one that convicted her. Strickland held her gaze. I understand that, but I need authenticated evidence. A clear interstate nexus and probable cause pointing to a specific individual before I can take this to a U.S. attorney. You know how this works. You spent 18 years on the other side of this table. I do. Renee said. That's the problem. She drove home and sat in her car for 15 minutes. The FBI wasn't corrupt. They simply had no institutional reason to care. Esperanza Molina was a rounding error in their metrics. Renee needed to bring the case to a level where they couldn't say no, but first, she needed evidence that could stand in a courtroom without her badge behind it. She drove to Falls Church and found J.P. Augustin mowing a commercial lot for $9 an hour. I don't want trouble. J.P. said, tell me what happened when you were accused. J.P. talked. Kimball had appeared with Padilla already present, not called after the discovery, but waiting. The thing I remember is that Kimball smiled, just a small one. Then he put his hand on my shoulder and said, damn shame. J.P., I really liked you. It was a mistake to meet J.P. openly. Renee didn't realize how closely Kimball was watching. 3 days later, Dwight Haskell, Ashford's night shift guard, submitted a brief security note to Kimball. Subject Thibodeaux observed an extended conversation with former vendor Augustin at Falls Church commercial lot. Photos attached from dashcam. Gate. 2 vehicle log confirms Thibodeaux exit 9:42 a.m. Kimball had tasked White to monitor Renee's movements the day after her arrest. It was standard procedure. He'd said, make sure she doesn't come back to the property. Kimball moved fast. He called JP's employer and told him JP had a theft conviction. A lie. Charges had been dropped, and JP called Renee at 6 in the morning. He's trying to get me fired. Again. Same play. I'm sorry. I should have been more careful. Sorry doesn't pay my rent. The line went dead. Her first operational error, approaching a source in the open, without cover, because she'd been thinking like an investigator with a badge and a team behind her. She had neither. The following week, Padilla called Renee's public defender to report that pearl earrings matching a prior theft had been found in a dumpster near Renee's apartment. Second count added. Renee had anticipated planted evidence and mounted a camera on her apartment window. but the footage showed only a silver Civic arriving at 417 a.m., a hooded figure placing something in the dumpster, and partial plates. The build was consistent with Dwight, but the face was hidden, not conclusive. She found Dwight at a gas station after his shift. He saw her and went white. I don't know what you want. You were at my building Tuesday at 4 a.m. I have video of your car. It's not my car. He got into the Civic and drove away. 2 dead ends in 1 week. JP exposed. Dwight refusing to break. Kimball tightening his perimeter. And 17 days until her preliminary hearing. She called Anita Reyes. Her public defender, Anita, was 27, handling 62 cases, running on coffee and the particular guilt of a young attorney who knew she couldn't give any single client the time they deserved. They met at a diner near the courthouse. Renee ordered nothing. Anita ordered coffee and didn't drink it. Before you start, Anita said. The DA added the earrings. 2 counts now. I know. I need to tell you something about my background. She told her. This is 18 years. The pattern Kimball. By the year. 5 victims. The pawn shop hits. The footage. Anita set down her spoon. Why didn't you tell me this when we first met? Because I needed to know if the evidence existed before I asked anyone to risk something on it. The pawn data. How did you get it? A former colleague ran internal queries. The results are real, but the chain of custody is unofficial. So we can't submit them. We can't submit them directly. But you can subpoena the shops directly and move for court orders when necessary. Once the records come through proper legal channels, they're clean. That's, Anita paused. That's actually smart. But if any of this trace leads back to an unauthorized search, the whole thing collapses. Which is why I'm telling you now, everything from this point forward goes through you. I stop being an investigator and start being a client. Anita stared at her for a long time. You're asking me to run a federal investigation through a county preliminary hearing. I'm asking you to defend your client. Send me everything you have. I'll tell you what I can use and what will get us both disbarred. Over the next 12 days, they worked in parallel. Anita filed subpoenas for pawnshop records across 3 states and discovery requests for Ashford's gate logs and camera maintenance history. The Fredericksburg and Martinsburg shops complied voluntarily after receiving preservation letters. The Maryland records required an emergency court order that took 4 days to process. Renee fed her the questions to ask and the patterns to look for, and Anita translated them into language a judge would accept. They argued constantly. Renee pushed for speed. Anita pushed for admissibility. It was the most productive conflict either of them had experienced in years. Renee pursued Marcus Colvin. She waited outside the maintenance garage after his shift. Marcus saw her and kept walking. I can't talk to you. Public sidewalk. 1 question. Have you seen anomalies in the camera logs? Marcus stopped, but didn't turn. I reported it to the HOA board 6 months ago. Timestamp gaps. Admin logins at wrong hours. Eastman told me it was a glitch and to stop wasting the board's time. I need those logs. Marcus turned around. If I give you data, I lose my job. If Kimball finds out, he frames me the way he framed you. He'll frame you anyway. The minute he thinks you're a risk. I know. That's why I've been quiet for 6 months. And Esperanza Molina has been quiet for 2 years. She's in a cell right now because nobody said anything. Marcus looked at the ground for a long time. I need to think about it, he said, and walked away. 3 days passed. Marcus didn't call. On the 4th day, a storage audit flagged the camera server at 98% capacity. Kimball saw his opening. He quietly amended the data retention policy that morning 90 days, down from the 5-year default, then ordered Marcus to compress and overwrite the historical metadata archive under the new threshold. Routine cleanup, he said. Overdue. He wanted it completed by Friday. Marcus sat at his desk and stared at the work order. He understood exactly what he was looking at. The logs were the only record that Kimball's admin account had touched the camera system 43 times over 5 years. After Friday, they would be gone. That night, at 11:40 p.m. Marcus returned to the server room. He told the gate guard he'd left his wallet. He sat down at the terminal, inserted an encrypted drive, and began copying the full metadata archive. The progress bar moved with agonizing slowness, 7 minutes for 5 years of data. Kimball's office was 40 feet down the hall. The building was empty, but every creak of the ventilation system sounded like a door opening. At 11:40, she szepte. The copy completed. Marcus ejected the drive, ran the maintenance script Kimball had requested, and watched 5 years of evidence disappear from the server. Then he went home and didn't sleep. The next morning, he called Renee from a blocked number. I'm not testifying, but I copied the logs before the purge. Encrypted drive, plus a technical summary I signed and notarized. UPS store on Route 7. Locker 114. Marcus, don't call me again. Renee picked up the drive. After Anita obtained a protective order shielding Marcus's identity from public disclosure, he agreed to give a sworn deposition under seal, confirming when and how he had copied the archive, establishing chain of custody without requiring him to appear in open court. Anita brought in David Kwon, a court-certified forensic analyst, who performed an independent forensic image of the drive and authenticated the metadata as unaltered. The logs showed admin account camera modifications corresponding with reported thefts over 5 years. This impeaches Kimball if he claims he never touched the system. Anita said, but it doesn't prove he committed the thefts. We need someone who saw what happened. I know. I need Dwight. Dwight's apartment was empty. A neighbor said he'd been loading boxes 4 days until the hearing, and her only eyewitness was gone. Renee sat in her car and let herself feel it, the particular cold of a case coming apart. She had logs without a human voice to explain them, metadata without a face. Kimball's attorney would call it a glitch, a system error, an account compromised by an unknown third party, and a county judge looking at a dog walker with a criminal charge and a story that sounded like a movie. Might believe him. On Tuesday, 2 days before the hearing, her phone rang. It's Dwight. His voice was thin. Kimball called me. He knows about your camera. He said if I don't disappear, he'll tell Padilla I was the one doing the break-ins. Where are you? Motel in Winchester. I was going to drive south and not stop. I pause, but I keep thinking about the cleaning lady, the one with the kid. Esperanza. I put the necklace in her cart while she was vacuuming upstairs. Kimball handed it to me in a plastic bag. It took 3 seconds. She went to prison for 3 seconds of my life. Come to the hearing. Tell the truth. What happens to me? I can't promise you immunity. I can promise the truth will be worse for Kimball than it is for you. And I can tell you that Anita will contact the Commonwealth's attorney about a cooperation agreement before you take the stand. And if they say no, then you'll have done the one thing that matters. But you have to decide tonight. Silence. I'll think about it. He hung up. Renee sat in the dark and waited. Atuns prezece, treizec. M. It's a text from an unknown number. I'll be there. She forwarded it to Anita. Anita spent the next morning negotiating a cooperation agreement with the Commonwealth's Attorney's Office. It was signed at 7:15 a.m. Thursday, 45 minutes before the hearing. That same morning, Anita submitted the authenticated evidence package to the FBI pawn records, camera logs, Kwon's verification report, and a summary brief. What Renee didn't know was that Strickland had already quietly reopened her original submission 2 days earlier. After Dana forwarded the authenticated pawnshop returns through official channels, the descriptions now matched catalogued stolen property. The phone number now had transaction histories attached. Anita's package that morning supplied the final probable cause link, the camera logs tying Kimball's admin account to every theft window. M. The package was in front of the duty assistant U.S. attorney. The warrant application was already moving while Kimball took the stand. It did not depend on testimony that hadn't happened yet. The authenticated records, metadata, tempted log purge, and a cashier's check from the Martinsburg pawnshop issued directly to Kimball Property Solutions LLC had already supplied probable cause on their own. The preliminary hearing was held Thursday morning. The courtroom was small, half empty. A few Ashford residents sat in the gallery. Diane Killerman, second row, arms crossed. In the back corner, an older woman held the hand of a girl with dark braids. Sophia Molina and her grandmother, Ray Kimball, took the stand in a charcoal blazer. The prosecutor walked him through the discovery. His voice was steady, his answers precise. Anita Reyes stood for cross. Mr. Kimball, you have administrative access to the Ashford camera system. I do. Have you ever altered, paused, looped, or modified the camera feeds? No. The system runs automatically. Never. Not once in 5 years. Never. Thank you. She sat down, then addressed the bench. Your Honor. The defense presents rebuttal evidence, authenticated metadata logs from the Ashford camera network, verified by forensic analyst David Kwon. The prosecutor objected immediately. Your Honor, these logs were obtained outside normal discovery channels. The defense has not established chain of custody from the original system. Anita presented Kwon's authentication report. The judge reviewed it for a long moment. The objection is noted, but Mr. Kwon's report establishes the data is unaltered. I'll admit it provisionally and weigh accordingly. These logs show camera modifications corresponding with reported thefts. Anita said, every modification was performed using the administrative account assigned to the witness, who just testified he never altered the system. Kimball's attorney stood. Your Honor, an admin account is not a fingerprint. Multiple personnel could have access to those credentials. This proves nothing about my client specifically. The judge nodded slowly. Hooray, a valid point. Counselor, an account login doesn't establish who was at the keyboard. Do you have anything connecting Mr. Kimball personally to these modifications? Anita looked at the courtroom door. It didn't open, Your Honor. I'd like to request a brief recess. Denied. Proceed with what you have. Or move on. Renee's hands under the table went cold. Dwight had texted. Anita had the agreement, but the chair was empty and the judge was losing patience. Kimball's attorney was already leaning back, the posture of a man who smelled blood. Your Honor, Anita said, steadying her voice. The defense also submits subpoenaed pawn shop transaction records from 3 states showing sales of items matching Ashford's stolen property. All transactions are linked to a single prepaid phone number. The courtroom door opened. Dwight Haskell walked in beside a young woman carrying a manila folder, his court-appointed attorney. She approached the bench and said, quietly, Your Honor, my client wishes to provide testimony under a cooperation agreement filed this morning with the Commonwealth's attorney. The judge looked at the prosecutor. The prosecutor looked at the folder. She hadn't seen it before. The signature was from her own office. Filed at 7:15 a.m. by an assistant who hadn't briefed her. I'll allow it. The judge said, proceed. Dwight was sworn in. He sat with his hands flat on the wooden rail in front of him, pressing down as if to keep them from shaking. He spoke in a voice that started as a whisper and grew. He described 5 years. Kimball selected targets, always high-value items. Always in homes where a service worker had recent access. Dwight disabled cameras using Kimball's admin credentials, switching them to loop mode for 15 to 30-minute windows. Kimball entered the homes using key codes copied from the HOA security database. Most thefts were written off to insurance and never investigated. But when a resident pushed too hard or a theft got too visible, Kimball chose a scapegoat. He picked people who couldn't fight back. Dwight said, people who didn't speak English well, or didn't have money for a lawyer, or who the residents would believe were guilty without asking too many questions. Why those people specifically, Anita asked. Dwight looked at his hands. Because the story wrote itself. Nobody in Ashford was going to believe that the head of security was robbing them. But the housekeeper, the gardener, the dog walker, that made sense to them. It fit what they already thought. He told me the owners were covered by insurance. Dwight continued. He said nobody really lost anything. He said the people we framed would get plea deals and be fine. His voice cracked on the last word. He used the word replaceable. He said they were replaceable. Did you personally plant evidence 5 times? 5 people, including Esperanza Molina. Yes. I put a diamond necklace in her cleaning cart while she was vacuuming upstairs. Kimball handed it to me in a plastic bag. It took 3 seconds. In the back row, Esperanza's mother gripped Sophia's hand. Sophia watched Dwight with the unblinking gravity of a child who understood more than any child should, and the bracelet found in Renee Thibodeaux's bag. Kimball placed it himself in the HOA storage room. Before her shift, at 5:47 in the morning, the prosecutor stood for cross-examination. Her voice was controlled, but the question carried weight. Mr. Haskell, you are testifying under a cooperation agreement that may reduce your own criminal exposure. Correct? Yes. So the more responsibility you place on Mr. Kimball, the better your own position becomes. Dwight looked at the prosecutor for the first time. No. My position got better every time I stayed silent. I'm here because I'm done making it better for myself. In the gallery, Detective Padilla shifted in his seat. He didn't leave, but he stopped looking at the witness stand. He stared at his own hands, folded in his lap, and didn't look up again. Anita turned to the bench. Your Honor, the defense moves to dismiss all charges against Renee Thibodeaux and requests this matter be referred to the United States Attorney's Office. Charges are dismissed. The judge said, this court refers the matter to federal authorities. He looked at Kimball. Mr. Kimball. I strongly advise you to retain counsel immediately. Kimball stood. His attorney was already packing his briefcase. Kimball looked at Renee. She was watching him with the same calm gaze she had carried since the day he'd identified the display case from the wrong angle. He understood. Finally. What he had been looking at, he walked out of the courtroom into the hallway. His attorney didn't follow. Kimball pushed through the front doors into the parking lot, got into his car, and sat for 30 seconds with his hands shaking on the steering wheel. Dwight had just given them everything. The logs, the phone, the names. He knew they might already be moving, but panic did what panic always did. It converted uncertainty into a deadline. The server logs were purged, but there was still the burner phone, the cash in the safe, the contact list in his desk drawer. If he could get there first, he could limit the damage. The drive back to Ashford took 11 minutes. He badged through the security gate. The guard waved him through without a second look. Same wave as always. Same nod. Same invisible trust that Kimball had spent 5 years converting into access. He parked at the office, unlocked the door. The lights were already on. 2 people stood inside, a man and a woman, both in dark suits. The woman held up credentials. Behind her, the bank of 16 monitors showed every camera in Ashford Estates, every gate, every trail, every driveway. All of them live, all of them recording. Raymond Kimball. FB. We have a federal warrant for your arrest. Turn around and place your hands behind your back. Kimball stared at the monitors. 43 times he had sat in this chair and turned those cameras blind. Now every one of them was watching him. The handcuffs clicked shut, the same sound that had accompanied Renee's arrest, and Esperanza's, and JP's, the same cold steel. Finally, on the right wrists, in the weeks that followed, Padilla's badge on a desk. Eastman's office door closed for the last time. JP's letter of exoneration framed and hung in his truck. Esperanza's file, stamped, hearing scheduled, 7 weeks. The system that put innocent people behind bars in 3 seconds could not be rushed into releasing them. All charges against Renee were dropped. 3 former clients called wanting to rehire her. She thanked each one and declined. The woman who had walked their dogs no longer existed. That woman had wanted silence and a life that asked nothing of her except to keep moving. Renee had burned it the night she closed the Roanoke listings, and she couldn't rebuild it, because she had seen what silence cost not to her, but to people who couldn't afford it. On a Tuesday afternoon, Renee sat on a bench outside the courthouse. Inside, Anita was filing motions for 3 additional victims. Sofia Molina sat beside her. Her grandmother had gone inside. Sofia held a composition notebook covered in stickers. She opened it to a blank page and began to draw a small house, a garden, a dog in the yard. Renee reached into her jacket and touched a photograph. Martin, laughing on the back porch. She looked at it, put it back. Sofia kept drawing. Renee stood. She looked east, toward the highway, toward Ashford. Then she turned and walked the other way. 3 seconds of silence. 5 lives were destroyed in seconds. Some are still waiting for justice. If this story stayed with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.